When my son informed me that I would not be invited to his home for Christmas, I simply smiled, got into my car, and made a single call. By the start of the new year, I had their mortgage payments canceled. That action marked only the beginning of my plan. Justice needed to be served, and arrogance required punishment. The things I did afterward will astonish you. Before we go any further, please subscribe to the channel and share where you are watching from in the comments. I could prepare my famous turkey this year, I said, sinking further into David's leather couch. It was the one with the sage filling that your mother used to adore. Do you recall how she would always claim it was better than her grandmother's recipe? Those words lingered in the cozy atmosphere, blending with the fragrance of Emily's luxurious vanilla candles. David shifted beside me, his wedding band shimmering under the glow of their towering Christmas tree. Something in his stance altered, his shoulders drawing inward as if bracing for a difficult moment. Dad, unfortunately, you won't be welcome here for Christmas. His words landed on me like a sharp blow to the chest. I blinked, sure I had misunderstood him. What do you mean? Why wouldn't I be welcome? David avoided meeting my eyes, staring instead at the marble coffee table, the very one I helped him select last spring when Emily decided their old furniture was no longer elegant enough. Emily's parents are coming, and they would prefer if you were not present. It would just be easier this way, Dad. You know how her family holds their traditions dearly. My hands turned icy cold. They would prefer. They have their own method of handling things. His voice diminished with every word, as if he was retreating into himself. I glanced around the living room at the silk drapes I had purchased when Emily worried about privacy, at the wooden floors that had been paid for with my second home loan, at the decorative molding that had pushed my credit limit to the max. Every inch of this house carried my mark, my sacrifice, my devotion to my son. Their own method, I repeated slowly. And what method is that, David? He winced. Dad, please don't make this more difficult than necessary. Through the opening to the kitchen, I noticed Emily's new KitchenAid mixer, the professional one she insisted was essential for her holiday baking spree that lasted exactly 3 weeks. $2,000 of my money sitting there, probably used only twice since last October. Where will I spend Christmas then? The question escaped more softly than I meant. David's expression tensed. Maybe you could, I don't know, visit Aunt Rosa, or we could do something the weekend after. The weekend after. As if Christmas were just another event to be pushed aside if convenient. I rose to my feet, my knees aching after carrying this weight alone for 8 years. I understand, Dad. Wait. But I was already heading toward the door, past the family pictures, where my face became smaller and more distant in every frame, past the coat closet filled with Emily's countless jackets. My hand grasped the doorknob, firm and cold beneath my palm. Son, I said without glancing back. Inform Emily's parents, I continued. Merry Christmas. The chill of December struck my face sharply as I headed toward my truck. Behind me, I heard David call my name just once, followed by the faint click of the door shutting. That was final. I settled into the driver's seat, engine still off, watching the Christmas lights flicker in the windows of homes where I knew I would never be welcome. My phone vibrated, likely David trying to fix things with empty promises and guilt. I chose not to answer. Instead, I turned the ignition and drove off into the night, leaving behind the warm light of the house I had purchased but would never truly belong to. The heater buzzed softly, pushing back the December cold as I maneuvered through the well-known streets on my way home. South Hills unfolded around me, every street corner filled with memories of the man I once was, the one who believed family was everything and would gladly give his last dollar just to see his son smile. That man was a fool. I halted at the red light at 29th and Grand, observing a young father loading Christmas gifts into his SUV. His children pressed their faces against the window, their breath fogging the glass with anticipation. Once that had been David and me. Before Emily. before I became no more than an ATM with inconvenient emotions. Numbers began spinning in my mind like a malfunctioning slot machine. $2,800 every month for 5 years. My calculator had given up months ago when I tried to make sense of it all. I calculated the total amount. $140,000. More than what Karen and I had saved for our entire retirement. Gone. Just vanished. I pushed the accelerator harder than needed as the traffic light turned green. The truck roared in response, matching the anger I felt inside. 5th Street. That was the place where I had refinanced our home. Our home, Karen's and mine, to cover their down payment. The loan officer had looked at me with a kind of pity I didn't understand at first. "Mr. Foster, are you certain about this? You are risking a lot to fund someone else's investment." Someone else's investment? Not my son's future, not my family's safety. Someone else's investment. Lincoln Street, the bank where I took out a second mortgage when David lost his job 2 years ago. Just temporary, Dad. Just until I get back on my feet. Emily stood behind him, a $700 purse slung over her shoulder, nodding with understanding while quietly calculating how much my desperation was worth. Nothing. It turned out my desperation wasn't worth anything to them. I pulled into my driveway, the one with cracked concrete I couldn't afford to repair because every spare penny disappeared into their flawless suburban dream. The porch light flickered. Another fix I had delayed. Inside, the house felt empty without Karen's laughter, without the warmth of family gatherings that would never happen again. My phone rang while I struggled with my keys, the sharp sound bouncing off the vacant walls. Emily's name appeared on the screen, likely ready to justify why I fell short of what her parents considered acceptable. Perfect timing. I had waited 5 years to have this talk. I picked up on the 4th ring, giving her just enough time to wonder if I would answer at all. Dennis. Emily's voice carried a fake sweetness, the very same tone she used when asking me to cover their water bill or property taxes. I heard about the little issue with David. Issue? I leaned against my kitchen counter, still wearing my coat. I do not believe there is any issue, Emily. You made your stance thoroughly clear. Look, I understand this sounds harsh, but you have to see things from my parents' viewpoint. They are very traditional people. They expect a particular mood during the holidays. A particular mood? I echoed. And which mood is that? A pause. I could hear shopping bags rustling nearby, probably spending money that should have gone towards their mortgage payment. Money that was apparently my responsibility. Well, they are not used to your style of cooking. All that spicy Mexican food and loud music. And honestly, Dennis, they are well-educated people. They expect discussions about current affairs, literature, art, you know. Those words struck me harder than any physical blow. 8 years of holding my tongue, swallowing insults for David's sake, pretending not to see the way she looked at me as if I were some sort of servant. The way I cooked, the tone of my voice. I remained calm and composed. You mean the meals you had every Sunday for 3 years when money was scarce? The tamales you claimed reminded you of your grandmother? That was a different time. Back then, we were grateful, but now, with my parents present. Now, with your parents involved, you cannot allow the Mexican peasant to make you look bad at your elegant dinner table. The fake kindness disappeared. No need to exaggerate, David. This is not about ethnicity. It is about social status. My father graduated with highest honors from Washington State. My mother is fluent in 4 languages. They spend their summers in the Hamptons. What exactly would you bring to the table during conversation? Tales about laying tile. Heat rushed to my chest, yet I maintained my calm. I created a company from zero after your husband's grandfather passed away. I have hired more than 50 people. I have contributed more in taxes than your father earned in his best year. Money is not the only thing that counts, David. Family background matters. Education is important. And honestly, Karen knew her place better than you realize yours. The room fell into complete silence. She had crossed the line. The boundary I never even realized was there until she stomped across it in her expensive heels. What exactly did you say about my wife? I am merely saying she knew how to fit in better. She did not cause trouble. She recognized that some environments were not meant for her. My grip on the phone tightened until my knuckles turned pale. Karen carried more elegance in her smallest finger than your entire lineage will ever achieve. Oh, come on. She was just a cleaner who happened to get lucky. At least she was wise enough to keep it all to herself. Emily. My voice lowered into a tone unfamiliar even to me. I need you to pay close attention. This discussion is finished. We are done pretending to be family. You cannot just... We're finished, I repeated and ended the call. Placing the phone gently on the counter, my hands were surprisingly steady. Around me, the kitchen seemed altered, tighter, yet somehow purer, as if a heavy cloud had been lifted from the atmosphere. I moved toward my desk in the corner, retrieving the manila folder I had avoided for countless months. Bank statements, mortgage contracts, a full 5 years of automatic withdrawals that drained me dry while they lived in luxury. Time to halt my losses. Part 4, the initial step, canceling the mortgage. The papers laid out across my kitchen table like clues at a crime scene. 5 years of records, each revealing the identical automatic withdrawal. $2,800 every 15th of the month disappearing from my account to theirs. A paper trail documenting my own foolishness. I grabbed my calculator and began tallying. The first year summed up to $33,600. The following year, the same $33,600 again. By year 3, I had stopped buying myself new garments. In the 4th year, I only shopped at discount supermarkets. This year marked the 5th year that I had been surviving on peanut butter sandwiches for lunch just to get by. $143,400. That sum did not include the initial down payment or the many times I had covered the utility bills while Emily's shopping habits spun out of control. It also left out the expenses of a new roof, the garden work, and the furniture necessary to maintain their way of living. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the figures until they began to blur. Karen's life insurance funds, my retirement savings, the college fund we had set up for grandchildren I would apparently never meet, all of it vanished. It had been poured into a house where I was not even welcome for Christmas dinner. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found my bank's number. The automated voice offered options in English and Spanish. How considerate. How perfectly tailored to people like me. The customer service greeted me. "This is Jennifer. How can I assist you today?" I needed to stop an automatic transfer, I said, my voice steadier than it had been in ages. "Certainly, sir. I will need your account number and some verification details." I recited the numbers, watching as she typed behind the scenes. Professional, efficient, no judgment about why a man of 62 was stopping payments on what was probably his son's mortgage. "I see the transfer you mean, Mr. Foster. $2,800 monthly to Wells Fargo, account ending in 7423. How long have you been making this transfer?" 5 years. The words left a bitter taste. "And you want to cancel it right away?" I glanced around my kitchen at the old appliances I could not afford to replace, at the walls that begged for a fresh coat of paint, at the windows that let in chilly air because I had spent my home improvement funds on someone else's dream. Immediately, I confirmed. Done. The transfer was stopped. "Is there anything else I can assist you with today?" "No," I replied, surprised by how satisfying the word felt. "No, that is all." I ended the call and sat in the sudden silence of my home. Outside, December's darkness wrapped around Spokane. Christmas lights sparkled in windows where families gathered without conditions, without judgment, without needing to conceal who they truly were. For the first time in 5 years, The budget for the upcoming month would be in balance. For the first time since Karen passed away, I could afford to repair my porch light, buy proper groceries, maybe even go on a vacation. I collected the bank statements, the mortgage documents, all the proof of my generosity. Then I moved to the fireplace, lit a match, and watched 5 years of self-sacrifice burn to ashes. The fire's warmth touched my face, warmer than I had felt in a long time. My phone buzzed with a message, probably David apologizing, or Emily asking for money for something trivial like new cushions. I did not check it. Instead, I poured myself a glass of the fine whiskey, the bottle I had saved for a special moment that never arrived. Tonight felt different, truly enough. I lifted my glass to the vacant room, to Karen's picture resting on the mantelpiece, to the man I once was and the man I was turning into. "Merry Christmas to me," I said quietly, and I truly meant those words. Part 5. Emily's Challenge. The following morning arrived brisk and bright, December sunlight flooding my kitchen as I savored my second cup of coffee. For the first time in many years, I wasn't worrying about how much money would vanish from my bank in 3 days. This freedom was far more satisfying than the Colombian coffee blend I finally allowed myself to buy. My phone rang precisely at 10:47 in the morning. Emily's name lit up the screen like an urgent alert. Dennis. Her voice carried that familiar hint of barely hidden annoyance. "I need you to pick up my parents from Spokane Airport. Their plane from Portland lands at 2 o'clock. I carefully put my mug down, watching the steam swirl toward the ceiling. "Emily, did you forget what we talked about yesterday? Look, whatever that was about, we need to concentrate on practical things now. My parents need a ride, and you're the only one free during the day." The nerve was astonishing. Less than a day after telling me I was unworthy of sharing Christmas dinner with her family, she expected me to be their chauffeur. "And you want me to do it because that is what family does, Dennis. They support one another." Her tone sharpened with frustration. "Besides, let's be honest here. You are not my adversary. You are far too weak to challenge me. Just get in your truck and pick them up." There it was, the ultimate insult disguised as an order. "Which airline?" I asked softly. "Alaska Air Flight 447. They will be waiting at baggage claim carousel number 3. And David, they are expecting someone capable of handling their luggage properly. Don't embarrass us." I could hear her nails tapping on something solid. Likely her granite countertop, the one I had bought after she decided laminate was unfit for her dinner gatherings. Naturally, I said, "I will take care of everything." "Good. And dress nicely. Perhaps that blue shirt you wore to David's graduation." They noticed details like that. The line went silent. She did not even say thank you. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the blank screen of my phone. 2 o'clock. Flight 447, baggage claim, carousel 3. I glanced at the wall clock above my sink. 10:52 in the morning. There was plenty of time. I poured myself another cup of coffee, added an extra spoon of sugar, and opened yesterday's newspaper to the crossword puzzle I hadn't finished. 7 across. Delayed gratification. 12 letters. The answer would come to me eventually. Part 6. The Airport Trap. At 2:15 in the afternoon, I was nestled in my favorite armchair with a fresh cup of Earl Grey and the Sunday edition of the Spokane Review. The crossword from the previous day lay completed on my coffee table. Delayed gratification had turned out to be postponement. My phone vibrated against the wood surface. Emily's name again. I let it ring. The December sunlight angled through my living room windows, filling the space where I had spent countless solitary evenings reflecting on the price of my generosity. Today, the quiet felt different, deliberate and deserved. 2:47 in the afternoon. The phone vibrated again. This time, I could glimpse the preview of her message. "Dad, where are you?" "My parents are." I flipped the phone face down and went back to the sports page. The Seahawks had lost once more. Some things remained unchanged. By 3:30, my phone had buzzed 6 times. I had finished the newspaper, brewed a second pot of tea, and begun sorting through the cluttered drawer in my kitchen table. It was surprising what tasks could be done when you were not rushing to serve those who treated you as their personal attendant. The 7th call came at 3:45. Instead of Emily's name, I saw a familiar number. Likely her parents borrowing someone else's phone at the airport. I let that one ring out too. Outside, a neighbor was putting up Christmas lights on his porch. His children darted through the yard, bursting with the wild energy that only December afternoons could bring. Ordinary families engaging in ordinary activities. No one was stuck anywhere, waiting for someone who would never arrive. 4:15 in the afternoon. My phone began ringing nonstop. Emily, then the unknown number, then Emily again. The buzzing became relentless, like an irate wasp trapped against glass. I walked over to my kitchen and unplugged the landline from the wall. Then I turned off my cell phone completely. Absolute silence. I prepared a grilled cheese sandwich and warmed up a can of tomato soup, a comforting meal I had not treated myself to in months. Every grocery dollar had been spent just to keep things afloat while supporting their lavish lifestyle. The cheese melted flawlessly, a beautiful golden shade. The soup steamed gently in my favorite mug. Outside, the winter sun was already beginning to dip below the horizon, casting lengthy shadows across my backyard. Somewhere in the town, 3 people were likely standing in an airport parking lot, arguing about the taxi fare and wondering how their personal servant could dare leave them stranded. This thought made my soup taste even more satisfying. By 5 o'clock in the evening, I had finished eating, loaded the dishwasher, and was debating which movie to watch. It had been years since I had a whole evening to myself, without stressing over urgent requests for money or last-minute favors. Just as I reached for the remote control, someone started pounding on my front door, not simply knocking, but hammering with such force that the whole frame shook, announcing pure rage. I set down my tea and moved slowly toward the noise, already certain who was behind that door. The pounding grew louder and more violent with every strike. Peering through the peephole, I saw 3 figures huddled on my tiny porch, like wolves closing in on their prey. I opened the door to find Cody Jenkins' flushed face mere inches from mine. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he yelled, barging into my living room without waiting for an invitation. We waited at that dreadful airport for more than 3 hours. Catherine trailed behind him, her normally flawless hair disordered, her lips tightly pressed in a line filled with pure resentment. "This kind of conduct is utterly unacceptable from someone your age, Dennis. Absolutely disgraceful." Emily brought up the rear, her expensive coat creased, her makeup smeared. "You have embarrassed us. Do you realize the consequences of your actions?" My voice cut sharply through their angry chorus like a blade slicing through silk. They paused mid-rant, stunned by the firmness in my tone. "Excuse me?" Cody's face shifted from red to a deep purple. "You don't get to issue demands here, pal. Not after what you did today." "This is my home," I said calmly, staying put by the door. "And I want you gone now." Catherine moved closer, her tone dripping with the kind of superiority she had mastered over years of belittling people like me. "Dennis, you clearly fail to grasp how severe your mistake is. My husband has ties all across this city, professional ties, social ties. You can't mistreat people like us and expect to get away with it. This was meant to be a lesson for you," I cut in, holding her gaze steadily. "A lesson about your overwhelming arrogance and how badly you treat those you think are beneath you." Emily's mouth dropped open. "A lesson? Who do you think you are to instruct anyone? You are nobody. You're someone who finally ceased being your personal ATM and chauffeur." I stepped aside and held the door wide open. "The lesson has ended. You may leave." Cody jabbed a finger toward my chest, but did not quite have the courage to touch me. "You have no idea who you are dealing with, old man. I have lived in this town longer than you have breathed its air. I know people, influential people, individuals who can make your life incredibly difficult. Is that a threat, Mr. Jenkins?" "It is a promise." His voice lowered into a menacing whisper. "Do you think that abandoning elderly people at an airport is something you can do without facing consequences? You are about to learn exactly how mistaken you are." Catherine nodded, her smile as sharp as shattered glass. "Certainly. Actions carry consequences, Dennis, and yours will be very public." Emily grabbed her father's arm. "Daddy, let's just go. This miserable old man is not worth our time." They exited my house like a defeated army, but Cody glanced back at the doorway. "You will regret this," he said. "I guarantee it." I closed the door behind them and turned the deadbolt with a satisfying click. Through the window, I saw them pile into their rental car, still bickering as they drove off into the December night. The house felt pure with them gone, as if their presence had left a stain that was only now fading away, yet their departing words echoed in the sudden silence. Public consequences, influential people, powerful connections. I returned to my living room and picked up my tea, still warm in its cup. For the first time, amid this whole chaos, I felt a flicker of what could have been concern. Yet, it was overshadowed by an emotion much stronger: anticipation. 3 days passed, and I was sipping my morning coffee while browsing the Spokane Review when I noticed my own face glaring back at me from the 3rd page. The headline declared, "Spokane businessman abandons elderly couple at airport amid holiday storm." My fingers froze on the coffee cup. There I was, in black and white, an old picture from my company's website, likely from 5 years ago. Underneath it, a story that sent chills through me and ignited my anger equally. Cody and Catherine Jenkins, visiting their daughter for Christmas, were left stranded at Spokane International Airport for more than 4 hours on Sunday because a family member named Dennis Foster failed to show up for their planned pickup. The couple, both nearing their 60s, had to endure freezing temperatures, while a winter storm warning affected the area. It had been 52 degrees and sunny. "We could not believe someone would just leave us like that," said Cody Jenkins, a retired banking executive. "We kept calling, but Mr. Foster never answered his phone. We had no choice but to take an expensive taxi in dangerous weather. At our age, this kind of behavior is not just disrespectful, it is hazardous." The article went on with further quotes concerning my actions. A pattern of unpredictable actions and doubts about my mental health. Cody had portrayed himself and Catherine as helpless victims of a heartless elderly man who suddenly lost control without any reason. There was no mention of the Christmas dinner refusal or any background about Emily's demands or their many years of financial abuse. Just me, depicted as the antagonist who abandoned innocent elderly visitors during a snowstorm that only existed in Cody's mind. I set down my coffee and read the article again slowly, then a 3rd time. The byline was Patricia Morrison, the lifestyle editor. I did not recognize the name, but I understood the tactic. Cody had called in favors and leveraged his banking contacts to publish this story exactly where it would inflict the greatest harm on my reputation. Clever? Very clever. For the first time since this entire ordeal began, I felt a reluctant admiration for my adversaries. They were not merely spoiled trust fund kids throwing fits. They were strategic and calculating. They knew that in a small city like Spokane, reputation meant everything. One carefully placed newspaper article could ruin decades of dedication and hard work. They had declared total war. I folded the newspaper deliberately and set it aside, my thoughts already shifting into the tactical mindset that had built my business from the ground up. This was no longer about airport rides or Christmas dinners or mortgage payments. This was about winning. I opened my laptop and started typing names into search engines. David Jenkins, Catherine Jenkins, Emily Foster, their social media accounts, their networks, their routines, their vulnerabilities, everything they had recklessly exposed online through the years. If they wanted to engage in a battle of wits, I was ready to demonstrate what true strategic mastery looked like. I glanced at my wall calendar. December 18th, exactly 7 days until Christmas. 7 days to devise a plan they would remember forever. I spent the following 3 days immersed in an entirely different reality. Not the reality where I was Dennis Foster, the worn-out old man who allowed his family to treat him like a doormat. This was the reality where I was Dennis Foster, entrepreneur, tactical mind, a man who had built an empire from scratch and refused to watch a group of privileged freeloaders ruin what 4 decades of hard work had created. My laptop turned into my mission headquarters. Social media profiles crowded my browser tabs like a deck of cards in a tense poker game. David Jenkins, former First National Bank manager, member of the Spokane Country Club, treasurer of the Inland Northwest Business Leaders Association, a man whose career was built on trust and authority, a man who had everything to lose. Catherine's Instagram portrayed an ideal image of cultured living, charity luncheons, wine tastings, vacation snapshots from Coeur d'Alene tagged with Amun Blessed Life. Every post was meticulously designed to convey success and elegance. Comments from friends applauded her sophisticated taste and inspiring lifestyle. All of it supported by other people's money, including mine. Emily's Facebook timeline revealed the truth. Posts about our gorgeous house with pictures of the kitchen I had paid for. Check-ins at upscale restaurants during the very months I had been covering their utility expenses. A status from just last week proclaimed excitement for Christmas dinner with family, adding, "Can't wait to showcase our hosting talents." Our hosting talents, our home, our achievements. The arrogance was stunning. Yet it was David's LinkedIn page that provided the final clue I needed. His latest activity showed a new connection. Patricia Morrison, lifestyle editor at the Spokane Review. The same Patricia Morrison who authored The Hatchet Job about me. Leaning back in my chair, I looked over the proof displayed on my screen. They had made 3 fatal errors. 1, they had completely underestimated me. 2, they had publicly launched their attack, allowing me to respond openly. 3, they had meticulously documented their luxury lifestyle online, giving me a perfect inventory of their duplicity. I proceeded to Patricia Morrison's profile. 43 years old, journalism degree from WSU, 15 years at local newspapers, no prior association with banking or finance, which suggested David had contacted her cold, likely through a mutual acquaintance in his business circle. A brief search of local business listings confirmed my doubts. 3 shared contacts between David and Patricia's editor. The story had not just appeared by chance, it had been deliberately planted. With careful attention and purpose, I opened a fresh document and began typing. This was not a reply to their media attack, but something far more effective. A detailed timeline spanning 5 years of financial aid supported by bank statements, receipts, and canceled checks. The initial payment for their home was $47,000, drawn from my home equity loan. Then came the kitchen remodel when Emily insisted granite countertops were a must. $18,000 charged to my credit card. 60 monthly mortgage installments of $2,800 each totaled $168,000, adding up to $250,000 million overall. More than I had spent on myself in the entire past 10 years. My phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number, likely Emily trying a new tactic. I ignored it and stayed focused. By nightfall, I had everything sorted into a manila folder so thick it could stifle a horse. Bank statements, receipts, photos I downloaded from their social media showing off purchases I had financed, and a printed newspaper article marked with my handwritten notes in the margins exposing each lie and twist of truth. I glanced at my wall calendar. December 24th was circled in bright red, not to mark Christmas, but because it was the ideal day for justice. According to Emily's Facebook events, They were hosting Christmas dinner for a dozen people, including family, friends, neighbors, and others within their social circle, the type of individuals who read the Spokane Review and form their opinions based on its content. These were precisely the people who deserved to uncover the real story. I closed my laptop and headed to the kitchen where I had left my reliable camera, the one I had purchased years ago to capture images of job sites for my business. It was time to use it for a completely different purpose. Tomorrow was Christmas Eve. That day, Cody Jenkins and his family would discover what happens when you challenge someone who actually knows how to fight back. Christmas Eve morning arrived gray and chilly, the kind of winter day in Spokane that made you appreciate warm homes and moments spent with loved ones. Unfortunately, I was not welcome at either place. Still, I had alternative plans. I spread out my evidence like an attorney preparing for a critical hearing. Bank statements sorted by year with each monthly payment marked in yellow. Receipts arranged in order, clearly showing the consistent support I had given to their lifestyle. Printed photos from their social media. Emily's new jewelry, vacation snapshots, and the costly Christmas ornaments now decorating the house. I had made 12 copies of everything, one for each guest at the dinner. On top of each pile lay a newspaper article annotated with my red pen. The word lie appeared beside Cody's statements about hazardous weather, while false was written next to complaints about my supposed erratic behavior. Missing context was highlighted where they intentionally omitted 5 years of financial aid. I dressed meticulously in my finest suit, the navy blue one I had worn to Karen's funeral, freshly pressed and prepared for a very different kind of goodbye. Today, I was bidding farewell to the man who had always been the family's doormat. By tonight, I would transform into someone who demanded respect. At 6:30 in the evening, I packed my briefcase with the evidence packets and drove to Kendall Yards. Their house shone with a warm glow, cars filling the driveway and lining the street. Through the front windows, I noticed silhouettes moving in the dining room, Emily playing the gracious hostess in the home my support had helped them acquire. I parked across the street and glanced at my watch. 6:45. Perfect timing. Late enough so everyone would be seated for dinner, early enough that they would still be finishing their main course. No one could escape easily. The front door stood unlocked. Naturally it was. Emily adored boasting about how safe their neighborhood was, how they did not need to worry about security like people living in tougher areas. I entered silently, the warm air welcoming me along with the sound of laughter and chatter coming from the dining room. Then Catherine said, "But darling, that is not how we do things in our family." Someone else laughed in agreement. Our family, after everything they had done to exclude me from it. I stepped into the room holding my briefcase, 12 faces turning to me with reactions ranging from shock to horror. Emily froze mid-motion. Her wine glass paused in front of her lips. David's expression turned pale. Cody and Catherine looked as if they had seen an apparition. "Good evening, everyone," I said calmly as I set down my case. A briefcase rested on their marble sideboard. "I hope you do not mind my joining your Christmas gathering?" Emily was the first to speak. "Dennis, this is highly inappropriate. You must leave at once." "Actually," I replied, opening my briefcase and taking out the first bundle of papers. "I believe your guests should understand who truly paid for this dinner, this house, and the lifestyle you have been flaunting." A woman I did not recognize, probably one of Catherine's charity acquaintances, leaned forward with interest. "What is he referring to?" Emily asked quickly. "He's having some kind of breakdown," Emily said urgently. "David, call for help." But I was already moving around the table, placing a set of documents in front of each guest. "Here are the bank statements," I said calmly. 5 years of financial support, $168,000 in mortgage payments alone, plus the initial deposit, renovations, furniture, and appliances. All you see here. The room fell silent except for the soft rustling of papers as 12 people carefully examined the evidence. I observed their expressions change as they absorbed the figures, the dates, the undeniable proof of my generosity and their deceit. "This is," one man began, then paused while studying a bank statement. "Outrageous," the woman opposite him concluded. "Emily, why did you never share any of this with us?" Emily's flawless composure was starting to break. "It is more complicated than it appears. Dennis volunteered to assist us. We never asked." "Actually," I interrupted, pulling out the newspaper clipping, "let's discuss what you did request and what you shared with the media about me." The atmosphere in the room seemed to cool by 10 degrees. I placed copies of the article on the table, observing as the dinner guests recognized my photo from the unkind story published 3 days before. "Now," I said, my voice cutting clearly through the sudden quiet, "let's address the true manipulators in this family." David's face shifted from red to pale. Catherine sat stiffly in her chair, her wineglass abandoned in her hand. Mr. Jenkins here exploited his banking contacts to spread this story. I kept tapping the newspaper. Notice how I am described as unstable and dangerous, leaving behind vulnerable elderly people in freezing temperatures. An older man, with gray hair wearing an expensive sweater, looked up from the article. "David, what is this about?" "The weather was 52 degrees and sunny," I replied before David spoke. "And those were not stranded tourists. They were Emily's parents coming to the Christmas dinner I was forbidden to attend because I supposedly was not suitable for their social circle." Catherine finally spoke. "That is not true? We never said that." "You never said what, Catherine?" I pulled out my phone, showing several screenshots of Emily's social media posts. "That I was too low class for your parents. That my Mexican food and working class conversations would embarrass you in front of your educated friends." The woman I recognized as one of Catherine's charity acquaintances shifted uncomfortably. "Catherine, surely you did not," Cody insisted, but his tone was weak and uncertain. This man clearly struggles with serious mental health problems. The pressure of getting older, financial difficulties. "Financial difficulties?" I almost laughed. "Mr. Jenkins, I have been supporting your daughter and son-in-law with nearly $3,000 every month for 5 years. The only financial troubles here are the ones you will soon face." I turned to face everyone at the table. These people have taken $200,000 from me while disparaging me behind my back. They have turned my son against me, excluded me from family events, and, when I finally defended myself, they attempted to ruin my reputation through the newspaper. David spoke for the first time, barely audible. "Dad, I did not know about the newspaper." "Your wife was aware," I replied softly. "And her parents planned it all. They painted me as the villain for refusing to be their endless source of money and driver." The atmosphere in the room was shifting as if massive tectonic plates were moving. I watched the guests' faces change, the slow dawning that everything they had been told about tonight's generous hosts was built on lies. "This is unforgivable," declared an elderly woman wearing pearls as she examined the bank statements. "Cody, how could you allow your daughter to exploit this man's kindness and then publicly attack him when he stopped supporting her?" David's carefully constructed facade was beginning to fall apart. "You don't grasp the entire situation," the woman interjected sharply. "I understand completely," she continued. "This man has been financially supporting your household while you treated him as little more than hired help, and when he finally refused to continue, you attempted to destroy his reputation." Catherine's voice was choked with emotion. "He deserted us at the airport," I replied calmly, "after you informed me that my presence would be unwelcome at Christmas because it might make your parents uncomfortable." "After 5 years of covering their expenses, while you looked down on me for my background and education." A heavy silence filled the room as 12 people fixed their gazes on David and Catherine, their faces showing anything from disgust to regret, forever associating with them. Emily made one last desperate effort to steer the conversation. "Everyone, please. This is a private family issue that has spiraled out of control. No, I answered firmly. This ceased to be a private family affair the moment you made it public. When you exploited the media to attack my character, deciding my reputation was an acceptable sacrifice for your pride. I scanned the table, seeing unfamiliar faces who now knew exactly who I was. I wanted you all to hear the truth before you come across Dennis Foster in the news again, because you will hear about me once more. But next time, it will be the real story. I closed my briefcase and adjusted my tie. Enjoy the rest of your meal. It will be the last dinner I pay for. As I approached the entrance, I could sense the turmoil igniting behind me. Raised voices with accusations, urgent questions seeking explanations, the sound of a meticulously maintained social illusion crumbling. It was the most striking Christmas melody I had ever encountered. The letter appeared on a Tuesday morning in March, sent by certified mail, carrying the weight of legal implications in each sentence. I accepted it at my doorstep, noticing how the spring breeze carried sense of renewal and opportunity instead of the bleakness that had shrouded those December days. The envelope bore the words, "Notice of default. Final demand for payment." Inside, 3 months of overdue mortgage installments overwhelmed David and Emily like an unstoppable wave of truth. $8,400 owed, 14 days to settle the balance or face foreclosure on the home I had helped them purchase. I placed the letter down and returned to my coffee, treating it like news about far-off weather. Curious, yet no longer my concern. My phone had been ringing nonstop for weeks with increasingly urgent calls. Emily's number was blocked after the first frantic voicemail. Cody and Catherine, whose reputation in Spokane had vanished as quickly as morning fog following their shameful Christmas gathering. Even David, whose calls I ignored partly out of resentment and partly to see how long it would take him to let go of his pride. The answer, it turned out, was 97 days. That Thursday evening, there was a knock on my door, and it was no longer the self-assured man who had cut me out of Christmas dinner. Instead, it was someone who seemed to have aged 10 years in just 3 months. Dark circles framed his eyes. His costly suit was creased, and a scent of despair clung to him, as though it were a poor substitute for fragrance. "Dad," he said, as I opened the door, "we need to have a conversation." I moved aside to let him enter, noticing how he glanced around my home, as if seeing it for the first time. The new furnishings purchased with my first paycheck free of mortgage. Payments. The freshly painted walls untouched for nearly a decade because every extra cent had been spent supporting his lifestyle. The repairs I was now able to make since I was no longer financing someone else's American dream. "Nice place," he admitted softly. "It happens when you invest in yourself instead of people who don't." "Thanks," I answered, sinking into my new recliner. "Want some coffee?" He declined, perching nervously at the edge of my couch, as if hesitant to relax. "Dad, I have to tell you how deeply sorry I am for everything. Christmas dinner, the newspaper article, how Emily, the whole family treated you." "Please continue," I said quietly. "I had no idea about Cody planting that story. I swear I didn't," he confessed, running his hands through his hair. "Jesus, Dad, the things they said behind your back, the way they spoke about our family, about Mom's memory." Hearing Karen's name made my jaw clench, but I kept my tone even throughout the conversation. "And what exactly did they say about your mother? That she knew her role better than you knew yours? That she respected limits?" They avoided meeting my gaze. I should have defended you. I should have confronted them long ago. "Yes," I said simply. "You should have." We remained silent for a while, the burden of 5 years of errors hanging heavily between us. Outside, I could hear my neighbor cutting his grass. The usual sounds of an ordinary Thursday evening in a typical neighborhood where sons did not exclude their fathers from Christmas dinner. "The house is in foreclosure," David said at last. "I know. We cannot cover the payments without." He stopped, as if realizing how that sounded. Without my support, I finished. Without the funds I was sending every month while you allowed your wife's family to treat me poorly. I know how it appears, David. I leaned forward, making sure he met my eyes. Do you realize how much money I sent you over 5 years? He nodded sorrowfully. Emily figured it out after Christmas. The mortgage payments, the initial deposit, everything else. Over $200,000. $237,468, I corrected. I know the precise figure because I finally did what I should have done years ago. I added it all up. His face fell apart. Dad, I am so sorry. I have no idea how to make this right. You cannot fix it, son. That money is gone. But even more importantly, those years have vanished. 5 years when I could have been growing a bond with you instead of funding your wife's dream life. I understand. I understand that now. He looked up at me with a glimmer that might have been hope. Perhaps we could begin again. Perhaps there is a way to move forward. Are you asking me to start the mortgage payments again? The hope vanished from his eyes. I think we are going to lose everything, Dad. The house, Emily's respect for me, her parents' approval. I don't know what I will do. You will find a way, I said gently. Just like I found a way to live without a son who respected me. Just like I learned to spend Christmas alone while you celebrated with people who believed I was beneath them. At that moment, he began to cry quietly, like a man who saw no other choice. I lost you, didn't I? I chose them over you, and now I have lost you forever. I watched him for a long time. This man I had raised and loved and sacrificed for, who allowed his wife's family to convince him that his father was not good enough for their circle. David, I said at last, you didn't lose me. You gave me away. There is a difference. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Is there any chance, any way you could forgive me? I forgave you months ago, I said, and meant it. But forgiveness does not mean going back to what was. It does not mean pretending this never happened or that I will resume paying for a life that demanded I be thankful for scraps of your attention. Then what does it mean? I stood and walked to the mantel where Karen's photo sat beside a new picture. I was with Rosa and her family during Easter dinner. It was the very first holiday I spent with people who genuinely wanted me there. This means that if anyone wishes to have a relationship with me, they will need to build it from the ground up. It means showing me respect without demanding that I first prove myself worthy. It means making decisions based on what is right, not merely what is easiest. I turned back toward him. It also means that the next time someone, whether it is your wife, her parents, or anyone else, tries to exclude me from family events, you will remember who truly behaves like family. He nodded slowly, perhaps finally realizing that respect is not something to be taken for granted. Quietly, he asked, "The house is no longer my problem now, right?" I sat down again, feeling lighter than I had in many years. You are an adult, David. Handle it the way adults do. Find a job that pays enough to cover your expenses. Sell the house and purchase something affordable. Stop living beyond your means and expecting others to support your decisions. He rose slowly, his shoulders straightening for the first time since he arrived. You are right about everything. I understand, he said. He moved toward the door but paused to look back. Dad, for what it is worth, seeing you stand up for yourself at Christmas dinner made me feel proud of you. I was embarrassed and angry, but I felt proud as well. That is good, I replied. Maybe there is still hope for you. After he left, I poured a glass of fine whiskey and stepped out onto my back porch. Spring was arriving in Spokane. Trees starting to sprout, the air warming with hope and renewal. In 4 months, I would be 63. Karen had been gone for 8 years now. I had lost 5 of those years, letting others treat me like a doormat, without valuing my sacrifices. I was determined not to lose any more time. My phone buzzed with a message from Rosa. Dinner Sunday. The kids want to show you their school projects. I smiled and replied, I would not miss it. True family, as it turned out, was something you discovered with those who genuinely wanted you around. Everything else felt like costly performance, and I was finished buying tickets to dramas where I was not welcome on stage. The whiskey tasted like liberation, and the future shone as brightly as I dared to make it. If you enjoyed this tale, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next story, click on the box on the left.